Chris Stephens.
Well, thank you, Mr Dowd. It's a pleasure to see you in the chair, and I want to congratulate the honourable member for Sheffield Hallam for securing this debate and the points and questions that she's raised for ministers. On behalf of the SNP group, Mr Dowd, can I say that 1 year on from Putin's illegal invasion, our party's message to Ukrainians arrivals is very clear. Scotland is your home for as long as you need it to be, because since the Russian invasion of Ukraine last February, the UNHCR has recorded that over 8 million refugees from Ukraine are across Europe. That's around 20% of the Ukrainian population. From the outset of this crisis, Scotland has stood ready to help. As the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said at the time, let people in and do the paperwork afterwards. When the Homes for Ukraine scheme was launched in March 2022, thousands of people across Scotland signed up to host Ukrainian refugees, and the Scottish Government became a super sponsor, enabling people fleeing the war to secure visas without having to arrange a private sponsor first. The super sponsor scheme has been overwhelmingly popular, with local authorities, the third sector and local communities all working in partnership, as we heard from Honourable Friend from Perth and Kinross about the work that Perth and Kinross Council is doing in that regard. And there is an excellent briefing that we've had from British Red Cross, which underlines that particular what's happening in Honourable Friend's constituency. As of the 17th of January 2023, 314 people displaced by the conflict in Ukraine have arrived in Perth and Kinross through the Homes for Ukraine and Scottish Super Sponsor scheme. This is the third highest of local authorities in Scotland by number and the highest number per capita. The Council has actively engaged with the private rented sector for over 10 years and has in-house letting agency which runs a charitable service. As a result, the agency is well connected to council services such as welfare rights, environment services and council tax, and the Council chose to run this service separately from social housing as it found that this did not work well in practice. The Council was able to expand that service to accommodate those coming from Ukraine and did not need to build new relationships with local landlords. Relying on that existing system contributed to Perth and Kinross having the lowest number of households in temporary accommodation. And I'll give way to my honourable friend.
It's been customary, particularly kind to my local authority, and I think they are worthy of congratulations for what they've achieved. But what they've done by setting up an in-house agency is to enable and properly connect with other council services such as welfare rights, which have been on hand to serve Ukrainian guests. And I think it serves as a great example about what can be done when the right type of focus is applied by local authorities. We have done spectacular things in Perth and Kinross on the basis of this, and I would like to think my honourable friend would perhaps encourage other local authorities to look at Perth and Kinross, use them as an example and perhaps replicate what they've done.
Yeah, I thank my honourable friend for that. My honourable friend knows that I come from a local government background, not necessarily as a councillor, but as a local government employee. So he knows that my passion for local government and the local government's role in society and how we can address a number of issues. And I think that he is correct that Perth and Kinross Council, in this particular example, has shown what local authorities can do, including SNP-controlled local authorities. So I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. As a result, Mr Dowd, the last 12 months has seen nearly 23,000 people from Ukraine arriving to safety in Scotland, with just shy of 19,000 of these arriving through the Super Sponsor scheme. This represents 20.4% of all UK arrivals. That's the most per head of any of the 4 UK nations. None of that would have been possible without the generosity and warm-heartedness of people across Scotland who opened their hearts and their homes to Ukrainian arrivals. The Scottish Government is supporting this scheme with over £70 million allocated for the Ukrainian resettlement programme for 2023-24 to ensure that communities continue to receive help to rebuild their lives. This will build on the £200 million the Scottish Government has provided to support resettlement this financial year. The funding will help to ensure that those displaced by the war continue to receive a warm welcome in Scotland and are supported to rebuild their lives in our communities for as long as they need to call Scotland their home. And all of this is, of course, dependent on funding and the UK Government, I hope, will step up to the plate to ensure full and sustained funding is in place to allow these programmes to continue for the coming year as well and beyond, and I'll maybe touch on that later, Mr Dowd. The Scottish Government is taking action to allow arrivals from Ukraine to take the next steps in their lives in Scotland. As part of the safe and welcoming accommodation, the Scottish Government chartered 2 passenger ships, one of which is based in the Glasgow South West constituency, and I have visited that ship on a regular basis. It is a very high standard of facilities for guests. It's well received on board. Glasgow City Council are there on hand, the Education Department, to ensure that children have access to schools in the area, also to help with their travel. And also the Department of Work and Pensions has been on the ship to ensure that Ukrainian refugees can find work and find employment. And I support the principle, Mr Dowd, of refugees coming into this country and being allowed to work. And I think that we do need to look at examples of other people seeking sanctuary being allowed the right to work as well, because I do think that that is an existing problem in other parts of the immigration system. The focus should now be on matching people to suitable longer-term accommodation. The ship in Glasgow and Govan will no longer be there at the end of March, and so there's now work being carried out to ensure that there's a longer-term resettlement fund and to make sure that they find that. But what we have seen on the passenger ship, for example, is people are there very much on a temporary basis. They're able to quickly find accommodation, they're quickly being able to find rent. But one of the problems we have had with the Ukrainian refugees based on the ship and based on my constituency caseload, and I would hope the Minister will take this back to the Home Office, is delays in Ukrainians receiving the biometric residence permits. There have been unnecessarily delays about that, and I would hope the Minister could take that back to the Home Office to make sure that the BRPs are provided quickly. Yeah, I'll give way to my honourable friend, of course.
Thank you very much, and agree with the points that he's making. Would you agree with some of the concerns that have been expressed to me that there may be a need to sort of further promote Homes for Ukraine as a scheme, because for those people on the boat, they don't always have the option to go on or move on somewhere else, and there are still people trying to flee Ukraine because the conflict is ongoing, and so additional support, additional promotion of such a scheme would be very welcome.
Yeah, I do agree with my honourable friend on that. I think that it's important that we continue to promote the schemes that are available there, to be a welcoming nation, to make sure that we can say to those in Ukraine that there is a place here at the moment, that there is quality education, that there is access to employment, and to help them get on with their lives. And of course there are some people who are over, Mr Dowd, who do want to get back, and that's perfectly an understandable position. There are people from Ukraine who do view this move at the moment as a refuge home and are hoping that they will have the opportunity to return back to their country. The cost of living crisis, Mr Dowd, has disrupted the finances of many hosts and local councils, and I would hope that the Minister can talk about what funding will be made available to ensure that anyone who wants to continue with the Homes to Ukraine scheme is not priced out from doing so. And I think it's important that we get those sorts of guarantees so that we can take that back. The last year has placed unprecedented financial pressure on households, the cost of living crisis playing havoc with people's finances. Many hosts who opened their doors to Ukrainian arrivals last March could not fully have appreciated how bad the cost of living crisis was going to become, with inflation spiking to 10.5% by December last year. I mean, from January, the UK government support available to local councils appeared to have been cut from 10,500 to 5,900 for each arrival. This does look like a short-sighted decision that seems to have been taken without any consultation with devolved administrations, and certainly probably without any consultation to local authorities across the board. And as a result, some hosts now feel that they simply cannot afford to continue participating in the scheme. And I think that's a pity that people are saying that. The Local Government Association has warned of the growing number of Ukrainians presenting as homeless to councils, particularly the significant rise in those who have arrived for the Homes for Ukrainian scheme, and it backs up the points that my honourable friend from Glasgow Central was making there. Data released in last month, Mr Dowd, showed that 4,295 Ukrainian households have presented themselves to councils as homeless, and that's a 40% increase since November 2022. So I would hope that the Minister will be able to give us an assurance that we're not simply passing the buck to local councils on this, and that there will be sustained funding. The uplift in the thank you payment to hosts from £350 to £500 is of course welcome, but that should be available now to all volunteer hosts to meet the increase in cost of living since March. And I hope that the Minister can give us assurance that there's continuing dialogue with organisations like, for example, the British Red Cross, who are saying that the increase could come too late and won't always be enough. So with that, Mr Dowd, I'd like to thank all those who participated in the debate so far, and I look forward to the Minister's response.